Many thanks for staying with us and welcome back to Business Week here on Arise News. Now, the Nigerian Export Promotion Council during the week reported that non-oil exports generated $2.7 billion in the first half of 2024, representing a 6.26% increase from $2.5 billion recorded during the same period in 2023. Export infrastructure, trade diplomacy, and secure sustainable funding are critical to the success of Nigeria's export sector. These factors are just as critical to the growth of the non-oil sector and realizing its full potential. Today, we're joined live from our Abuja studio by Mevis Aiyeju, who is CEO of Commodities Trading Limited, a pan-African agro-export business currently operating from Nigeria for its export operations, while its German subsidiary services the global market and its clients. We're also joined here in our Lagos studio by Adeniran, who is head of the export desk at Zenith Bank PLC, one of Nigeria's leading commercial banks. He helps to structure trade finance deals for businesses and SMEs seeking to export their goods outside the country. Welcome to the show, Mevis and Adeniran. It's great to have you both on Business Week.
Thank you very much.
Great.
Thank you for
Well, let's
having me.
begin with you, Mevis, in Abuja. Thank you for joining the show. Let's begin with you. Do you see potential for non-oil exports to contribute to Nigeria's current growth and revenue objectives?
Absolutely. I mean, I think, it really is the way to go. I think we've learned from the focus on oil exports and, the need to diversify this. I think it would help go a long way in terms of food security, but also obviously balancing the economy as well as the currency. So absolutely, I think it is crucial to Nigeria's economy.
So we're starting off on a positive outlook there. Adeniran, to you, how would you describe the current state of non-oil exports in Nigeria, and how has this evolved over the past few years?
Thank you very much, Abby. The state of non-oil export in Nigeria, I would say, is quite strong and positive. Going by the numbers that Nigerian Export Promotion Council released, half year this year, $2.7 billion, relative to $2.5 billion last year. That's a growth of 6.26. But I would say that growth is muted. If you look at that growth rate, it pales in comparison to the potential growth rate we have in the non-oil export sector. There's so many opportunities therein. We have a lot of importers, and I dare say that all these importers should be exporters. If you're an importer, you should be exporting as well. You already have a contact abroad. What do you need to do? Reach out to them, and then you can export to them. If you're exporting from China, you're bringing items there. They also need items that we have in the country. So a lot needs to be done. The Nigeria Export Promotion Council, they are doing a lot. All the stakeholders, but I dare say that we need to do so much more to make the growth rate to be double digit. I dare say 100% growth.
Okay, well, I mean, talking about opportunities, what sectors do you believe have the most potential for non-oil export growth in Nigeria? And more importantly, why?
Interestingly, all the subsectors of the non-oil export, they have great potentials. You're looking at the agricultural commodities, solid minerals. You're looking at even service exports. You're looking at manufactured goods. All of them, they have great potentials because we haven't tapped up to 20% of the potentials. But to answer your question specifically, I would say agricultural commodities. Agricultural commodities have the greatest potential of immediate impact on how much we're able to generate from the non-oil export sector. There is opportunity for backward integration. Most of the exporters now, they look at getting the exportable items, but the part where you need to grow the crops, there's still a whole lot that can be done in that area. And if we're able to do that, we get more value. There's a lot of conversation around responsible sourcing. If you're able to backward integrate, you monitor in terms of the environment, social and ethic issue, you grow these commodities in a way that you're able to get more value when you negotiate with the buyers. I would say agricultural commodities, because of the immediate impact, and also even for forward integration, you're able to add value to this. You see most of the things that we consume are imported. We can actually produce them here. If you look at cashew nuts, the kernels, we can process and have the cashew nuts kernels that we eat here instead of importing them. So because of that, I feel investment in agricultural commodities will have the most impact in terms of non-oil exports.
All right, impact, value, and sustainability. Those are very key words when we're looking at that sector, and I hope we can be able to flesh that a lot more in detail. Mevis, let's come over to you. Let's look at the current state of the agriculture value chain in Nigeria. What is your assessment of it, and how can we ensure that farmers get the full benefit of their efforts through the entire supply chain?
Yes, thank you so much. I mean, I'd like to also concur with his statement as well that agriculture as a non-oil export is absolutely the priority, also because it would help, support the food security within Nigeria. I mean, when you have a population of, more than 200 million people, obviously taking on a task such as, revamping the agricultural sector is not the same like if, a country that has 8 million or 5 million people. In terms of farmers' benefits, I think some of the challenges we still have is smallholder farmers are operating at very, very low capacity, and it makes the output very small, and therefore large organizations are not able to work with farmers directly. So often there's a lot of middlemen between the farmer and the final exporter, such as myself. I think one of the ways this can really be mitigated and also quality control can be supported is by a lot of outgrower programs. I think if a lot of exporters engage in more outgrower programs, it allows the exporter to pay much better prices to the farmers for their goods, rather than having 4 or 5 middlemen, which reduces the margins and profits, that farmers can make. So I think at the moment, they are still struggling. Farmers are still very much struggling with input. They're struggling with weather conditions. They're struggling with access to financing. But for example, a solution such as an outgrower program for exporting companies is a great solution for farmers to actually access benefits and financial benefits to their work.
Right, and smallholder farmers particularly. I mean, now from a more educational perspective, and still staying with you, Mevis, how are agricultural exports contributing to Nigeria's global trade potential? Is there, for instance, an overseas market for Nigerian produce? If so, where are these markets, and for what produce specifically? We've seen the work of initiatives such as Aiyeju, as you've mentioned, and the likes of over time, but what more should we know about similar platforms and their prospects?
Yes, thank you. I mean, I don't know whether it's surprising or surprisingly not, but when I attend a lot of international trade shows, where you have other African countries and Asia available as producers, Nigeria is usually in high demand, right? We do produce quite a lot on the continent, so specifically for our cash crop, right? And that's usually the focus that global buyers have, is on our cash crops such as, sesame, cashew, as, the colleague mentioned, ginger, hibiscus, palm, kernel, and then also cocoa. Those are really of high interest. At the moment, unfortunately or fortunately, still raw. We are trying to get to a place where, like you mentioned, we add more value to these products, and, instead of selling raw or exporting raw cashew nut, we're exporting kernels, but we're not really there yet. But I think those are some of your major crops, definitely cash crop. In terms of destinations, I think you have to look at 2 categories to be realistic, and I'm just speaking as a realistic exporter from experience. You have the Asia market, where it is often easier to meet their quality requirements, but then the prices are also a little bit lower. But then you have the Western market, so you have the US, you have Europe, that the prices have serious premiums, but as an exporter to be able to meet their requirements is a little bit more difficult, right? There's sometimes certifications that are required that you don't have labs in Nigeria that can do these. For example, it's not impossible. There are people who are doing it. It's just a little bit more difficult and requires a lot more backward integration, traceability, and all that. So I think that's kind of the categories you have to look at. You have to look at easier markets to access, which is the Asia market. So you're talking China, India, right? They love Nigerian products. They take a lot of volume from us. And then you have the more niche markets that are a little bit more difficult to access, but financially are way more beneficial and are also open to, value-added products. But it means that you have a lot of quality requirements that you need to meet when you export to these destinations.
So there are varied requirements and entry points to that is what I'm hearing there. But Adeniran, let's I'll give you room to come in here. How would you say the global or, yeah, absolutely. How would you say the global or African regional economic environment, impacts Nigeria's non-oil exports? And what strategies, more importantly, should exporters factor in when it comes to navigating these challenges?
Thank you very much, Abby. We've seen price fluctuations. We've seen political disruptions that created increased demand for our products. which means exporters can get more export proceeds from what they export. That brings us back to what I said earlier. How do we get more to export? You have the advantage over there. We've seen prices that have moved significantly. If you look at cocoa, the prices have grown about 300%, which means if you're exporting 1,000 tons of cocoa, you have over 100% price increase relative to the same period, the penultimate year. Now, the important thing is how are we able to increase what we send out there? And it boils down to us increasing how much we produce, getting more people to do export. I'm particularly passionate about seeing importers becoming exporters. You need FX to do your imports. Why not generate it? You have everything that you need to generate it. You just need an SPV. You're already in business. You have business contact. So if we're able to do that, we'll fully take advantage of what is happening in the global economy in terms of a price increase, the political disruption. Yes, we don't want that, but it is what it is. It creates an advantage, and we have to seize it. Government is doing a lot. All the stakeholders, like I mentioned, are doing a lot. But they say that we need to get out of this muted growth and start doing double-digit or even 200% increase. In 2023, according to NFPC, about $4.5 billion was generated. Imagine if that was 10 billion. Look at the impact on what CBN is trying to do. We'd have an economic boom. So I would say the economic environment worldwide is more of a positive inclination for our exporters, but we need to actively take it rather than everybody trying to take what is available. We need to backward integrate to grow what is available, and then we're going to have more coming into the system.
Right. Talking about what can be done, let's look at what your organization is doing specifically. Are there any specific initiatives that have been, implemented to support, drive the growth of non-oil exports in Nigeria?
Thank you very much, Abby. For us at Zenith Bank, non-oil export is a major focus. Our group managing director, Dr. Adeniran OON, is passionate about this, and that passion permeates the entire organization. We have advocacy program. We call it the Export Seminar. It's an annual event where we bring all the stakeholders together to look at the issues and then provide solutions to them. We have to keep this in the front burner, so we have this conversation where we bring everybody together every year. In fact, Abby, I'll say to you, incidentally, the one for the 9th edition will be coming up on September 4th. On Victoria Island. It promises to be very enriching. So that's part of what we do. We also have our flagship program, the Zero to Hero program. What is the Zero to Hero program? Like I mentioned, if you look at the Connect, we're trying to grow more exporters. We have what it takes. We have the exportable items. So we need to bring up more exporters in a way that the capacity will be able to support what they do. So the Zero to Hero program is our flagship program where we bring in novice in the space or those who want to enhance their capacity, and even importers. We put them together, we expose them to the rudimentary of export. We bring in those who are successful already to interact with them. We take them to the field, and they are ready. And as they go on in the journey, we stay with them. If along the line you need funding, of course, we'll make it available to you. It's not guaranteed, though. You must meet our risk acceptance criteria. But these are some of the things we're doing. We also have a program for SME, where we have SME Grow My Business, to focus on that and then ensure that they're able to participate. So the objective for us actually is to see that non-oil export grows because of the multiplier effect on the economy. The severe paucity of FX we have in the economy is a major challenge. If we're able to solve that, we'll have a renaissance in our economy. And I believe we can do it, and that's why we focus on it. All
right, sounds like a myriad of initiatives there. And of course, the multiplier effect is what we're looking for. It's always very important. Mevis, I'm coming over to you. Let's talk about, for entrepreneurs within the space, can you attest to any benefits to the commodities trade from the AFTA initiative? If so, please elaborate on it. And if not, what potential does the initiative have to impact the soft commodity space in Nigeria?
Yes, thank you. And if I may, I'd also like to add to
yes, please. Yes, please. I would love for you to do so. Yes, please.
He's completely right. In terms of importers working together with exporters, it's a strategy, a financial strategy that we actually also implement. we work with companies who are, have an import requirement and they require a lot of forex and perhaps they're generating a lot of naira and they're able to finance us while we export and then bring in the dollar. So this is truly a very self-sustainable model that then also doesn't always require financial institutions to come in, which is a little bit longer process. So I completely agree with that strategy of importers and exporters kind of working together. In terms of the AFCFTA, I think what a lot of people need to understand, it's still in the early days of implementation. I think obviously these kind of things take years to be able to become a reality. From what I know and some of the conversations I've had, there are certain things that are only becoming available now, like certain payment platforms that are meant to allow us to be able to transact currency to currency. If we wanted to export or import from Ghana, that we're able to transact in our local currencies. Some of these systems are being put in place now. And then there's such an understanding of, being able to get, all these implementations to customs and all that. So I think it's obviously a great initiative. We have a high interest in Africa. We source not just from Nigeria. We operate in other African countries. I've operated in other African countries and exported from them. It is absolutely crucial for us to be able to trade within the continent. I think we need to be a little bit more patient to be able to really see this implemented and exporters to use this on a day-to-day basis. But I think the steps are being taken. I think this year has been a crucial year for the implementation of some of these systems. And I think the first one was obviously the payment platforms, because that's going to be the most important thing. And I think that was supported by Afrexim Bank. So it's yet to be seen, but I believe that probably by the next trading cycle, maybe by next year or so, some of these transactions under that agreement can now start to take place in larger volumes.
All right, that sounds extremely promising. And, there is always a lot of eagerness around seeing implementation. But let's backtrack a little bit. I'm still staying with you, Mevis. What are some of the current granular challenges faced by food producers and farmers in Nigeria with regards to exportation of produce outside the country, especially in relation to finance availability, market access, and infrastructure? And more importantly, are there potential solutions on the horizon?
Yes, like I had mentioned earlier, exporting to certain destinations has, very, very specific quality requirements. So the entry barrier is quite high. I do think people shouldn't get discouraged by it. I think there's something that, it can be approached by in phases. In terms of access, obviously, or the challenges that, producers and smallholder farmers face in Nigeria, obviously there's a level of, financial viability to financing farmers, especially by financial institutions. It's high risk for them. There are a lot of initiatives by a lot of banks who are really putting agriculture as a huge focus. But again, I think coming back to the population, I think this always needs to be understood. If Zenith Bank, for example, is working with 1 million farmers, that's a lot of farmers. But then at the end of the day, you realize it would take time for the impact to really be shown, right? So targeting a population such as ours is not an easy task. And so there are a lot of initiatives for farmers, from financial, government institutions, from private institutions. We do outgrower programs as well. And I think there's gradual growth. But then, you have things like challenges around climate change, right? You have floods, that are going on concurrently. And, some financial institutions provided input, for example, to these farmers, right? So what happens now when, the seeds are washed away? So there's still an issue around, financially investing and then de-risking, these investments. It's challenging, but I do believe as export also grows, it will also support local production, because like he said, we would, focus on backward integration, because the more our capacity grows in exporting and the more demand we have, we as exporters then have more interest in ensuring that productivity also goes up, right? So the private sector can kind of support that growth in working with these farmers.
Right, absolutely. So time and external factors also play a role there. But we have very little time left, and I would like for both of you to chime in on this. But I want to begin with you, Adeniran. What opportunities exist for SMEs in the agricultural trade and export business and all value chain? And more importantly, what type of policy or, government interventions and support is needed to help boost the growth around that?
Thank you very much, Abby. We all know SME is the growth engine of the economy.
Absolutely.
And when you look at the value chain of the export, there are a whole lot that they can focus on. But I look at SME, the first thing that comes to mind is funding. I rather disagree. There are little opportunities that you can use to grow capacity, and then you are able to scale up. So I would say they can participate at the base of the value chain for a start, not to aim for the upper part, because that's where they run into challenges. Start small and then grow capacity, and then you are able to catch up and become a big business along the line.
All right, the sky's the limit. Mevis, I want us to wrap it up. Let's get your opinion on that. Opportunities that exist for the SMEs in the agricultural trade and export, but very briefly, please.
Yes, I completely agree. I mean, when I started about 8 years ago, I started with a trade of 33 tons, and now I export thousands of metric tons worth of millions of dollars, right? So I agree that entry point must be small. You start small and grow that, right? I don't think you should target, getting into this and trying to raise, a crazy amount of money. Right. So I think I agree with that. Start small and grow that from there. And
what better case studies than my two great guests today, Mevis Aiyeju and Adeniran. Again, I want to thank you both. Many thanks for joining Business Week today. We hope to have you on the show again very soon. Well, that's all we have time for today on Business Week. I am Abby Olawi. Let's continue the conversation on X. Rolake Akikobe Filani is back next week. Do have a lovely rest of the weekend.